Now, this morning, we're going to continue the series that you're doing called Breathe. Isn't there times in your life when it just feels like you're drowning and you just can't seem to get your head above the water and you're having a hard time breathing because the anxiety levels in you are becoming so high that you don't know really what to do? And in this series, we're talking about those anxiety levels, those feelings of drowning in areas of finance and in areas where anger comes forward in your life and in areas of busyness. And there's so many different ways that anxiety climbs in our lives where we feel like we're drowning. So this morning, we're going to be talking about anxiety and how that's affecting your life. And when I went into a lot of the research, I found out that the anxiety levels have really risen during this whole COVID experience. So before I go any farther this morning, I want you to do a favor for me. I want you to relax. Breathe through the nose, out through the mouth. Just relax. Don't think about what you're going to be doing for the rest of the day. Concentrate on what's taking place right here. Just breathe through the nose and out through the mouth. Don't think about your work and what you have to do for the rest of the week. Take one time here in your life just to be able to relax and to concentrate on God. Just breathe through the nose, out through the mouth, and relax. When I took a look at what is going on in the use of anxiety drugs during COVID, what I found out is that there's 3 areas that they talk about. They talk about depression, they talk about anxiety, and they talk about not having the ability to sleep, insomnia. And those are the things that they talk about quite often. But what we're going to be dealing with is just the anxiety side of it this morning. And what I saw is that within the first couple months after COVID started, anxiety drugs increased by 34%. A huge, huge number. But what's more interesting about it is most of this increase in anxiety drugs was for people who never, ever thought they would need it. These are people who had very stable lives. They had jobs. They have food on the table. Everything seemed to be going wonderful. And they never really had to deal with the whole anxiety of not being able to know if you're going to feed your family, not being able to know if you're going to have a job tomorrow, having all these negative things suddenly take place in their life due to COVID, and they just didn't know how to cope. And they just felt like they were drowning and they couldn't get their head above water and they needed some help. And so they took these anxiety drugs to try to survive. They didn't know if they were going to be able to pay for their rent. They didn't know if they were going to be able to pay for their house. And when you sit there and you don't know that you're going to be able to come up with enough food for your family to eat, and you've never ever experienced that in your life, the anxiety levels go up and go up and go up. But relax. Breathe through the nose and out through the mouth. Now, I come from a church called Bravo Community Church. And in that area, this is normal life for them. The poverty levels are up to about 30%. And so what we want to do as a church is be able to help the people in the community. And what we try to do is encourage industry to be able to come to the area so there were jobs. But industry doesn't want to come to the area because there's not enough people to fill the positions. But if they came to the area, more people would come to the area and there would be enough people. And so it seems to be going around and around in a circle and nobody really knows what to do. So as a pastor and as a church, people will come up to me and say, can you help me? Can you help me find a job? Well, jobs do exist about 30 to 40 minutes away from both directions from where our church is. And I can find a job for them, and we can find a job for them to go to. And then they come up to me and say, oh, but I don't have a working vehicle. I don't have a vehicle. How do I get to the job that's 40 minutes away if I don't have this working vehicle? And so my anxiety grows. The anxiety of the church grows because what they want to do more than anything else is to be able to help the people in the area. But how do they do that? And so we might put some money together or might be able to find a vehicle, or a vehicle is donated and the person is really excited because they have this vehicle that they can now drive to their work. And then they come and say, but Pastor, I'm a single parent. I have 4 kids at home. Can you find somebody to take care of my 4 kids? Is there anybody that can do that? And by the way, I can't pay them any money because I don't have any money. And so the anxiety of the people in that area trying to figure out how they're going to live day by day grows and grows and grows. And why do they come to the church? Because the church is a place where people can find help. It is a place where there's people in the church that want to make a difference. But sometimes it's difficult to do that. I have a church that on a normal Sunday averages about 25 people. We get offerings on occasion that exist about $50. That's what we receive. And now we have all these needs and all these demands, and my anxiety level goes up and up and up, and I have to take my 100 milligrams of Losartan in order to be able to keep my blood pressure down. How do you help? How do you help situations such as that? Even here, as I stand this morning, I am getting texts from people and they're saying, I need food. I need gas. Can I meet with you in order to get that? And we'll do the best that we can. But sometimes the offerings are so small that there's not a lot that we can do in certain situations. But we try. Now, there's a bright spot to my church. And the bright spot is that it has a thrift store. Back in 1935, they moved the church into a 1-room school. And they couldn't use it during the week because school was going on, but they could rent it out on the weekend. Does that sound familiar? It sounds real familiar. And so the problem is that it was also a town hall, so they had dances and all kinds of things on Fridays and Saturday nights. So on Sunday morning, they came in with their brooms and they brushed all the beer bottles to the corner of the room so they could have church in that morning. And then the church grew, and it grew, and it grew to a point where they had to build another church next door to it. And so they built that church, but the old church is now used as a thrift store. And you might say, well, that's a good way to make money. In a place where there's 30% poverty, we give away 70% of everything that's in that thrift store. But what a blessing we can be to the community. Because we had somebody whose house burnt down to the ground. They literally had nothing. And we brought them to our thrift store and said, take what you need in order to start over again. And then we had somebody who came to our thrift store, part of a domestic violent situation that took place. And she had been kicked out of the house. She had no place to go. She only had the clothes on her body. And we opened up the store and we said, take what you need in order to start over again. We had another lady whose trailer got hit by lightning and it melted and burnt everything inside. A beautiful lady within our church donated a trailer that she had. These aren't just the travel trailers. These are the ones that you live in, the big trailers. And she donated thousands of dollars worth of a trailer to this person so this person could start all over again. And again, we opened up our thrift store, take what you need in order to start over again. It is our way of making a difference in the community. Because when people need help, where do they go? They go to the church. We had a lady who came to us, and she had 10 kids. 10. And she was pregnant. So her mother adopted 6 of them. The courts took away 4 of them, and the courts were going to take away the one that she was pregnant with. And she walks into our store, and she visits with me. Please help me. What can we do? And what I did is I've learned a little bit in the past week. I contacted my daughter. I says, how much are diapers? How much does it cost a month to have diapers for one child? And she told me anywhere from $70 to $100 per child, depending on what kind of diaper that you purchase. And we had diapers in our store. So we gave her whatever it was that she needed in order to try to take care of her kids. We have an emergency pantry, and that emergency pantry is full of food, but very seldom is it full of food because it's constantly being used and people are asking for food. And she received a bunch of that food. See, this is what churches are all about. This is what churches do. They make a difference in the lives of the community around them. And even though the anxiety level goes up and up and up because you want to do more and more and more, and you can't do it because you just don't have the resources, there's something that you can give to them that is free. And that is love and the word of Jesus. And so we give that to them freely. And we try to preach the gospel to them. But nobody cares about what you know unless they know that you care. And so we spend our time caring before somebody is actually going to listen. My days of meeting with people out in front of Starbucks has come to an end. I now meet with people where they live. And recently, I met with somebody who had just gotten out of prison. And he moved into a shack located in the middle of a blueberry field. And that's all he could do. He had nobody who cared, nobody who loved him. And because he was a meth dealer at one time, which is the reason why he ended up in prison, nobody wanted to have anything to do with him. And I met with him out in that one-room shack located in a blueberry field. And what he needed was he needed $50 to be able to get a mechanic come to take a look at his vehicle to see what it was needed to be able to fix. $50? That's 1 week offering. And so we gave him the $50. And he found out that he had to spend $160 to be able to pay for it, fixing his car. Yet he was fixing a car that he was hoping to buy, and that was another $600. And between plates and insurance and all the stuff that goes with it, it's $1,000. Where do you come up with that money? The anxiety just increases and increases. And his anxiety increases and increases. Because you know where he can make money? He can sell meth again. And he can make a lot of money in a short period of time. And he could have a nice car and he could have a nice house until the time he gets caught again. And then he's going to be sent to prison and he'll never get out and he'll die in prison and he'll be buried in a grave there because nobody cares. But the church cares. And that's what we're doing and that's what we're working on. But what we want to do is to be able to help, but there's the anxiety level that they're going through, and there's the anxiety level that we're going through, and that anxiety level increases and increases and increases because you just don't always know how it is that you can fix some of these problems. Now, what I want to do this morning is I want to give you 5 points as to what to think about in trying to decrease that anxiety in your life. But again, relax. Breathe through the nose, out through the mouth. Just relax. And we'll go through these different points of anxiety right now. The first one I want to talk about is anxiety with others. This is a perfect time to think about it because you've just been through the holidays. And isn't the holidays just a wonderful experience? Your families all come to meet you. You don't like most of them. You see your parents, but you're angry with them. You have a sister that you haven't talked to in 15 years, and you're going to make sure that you don't blow that. And then talk to them during this time. And so all this anxiety and all this stress goes up during the holidays because you just don't want to deal with all the issues of family and friends, and it's forced upon you during this period of time. I've talked to people who have had issues with their families and issues with brothers and sisters and friends, and they've just separated from them and haven't talked to them for years. You need to think about that a little bit. I want to bring up Matthew 18, 21 through 22. Matthew 18, 21 through 22. And it says, "Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, 'Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times?' And Jesus answered, 'I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times. Forgiveness. What we need to do is to forgive people for whatever thing that they did to you at some point in time. You need to forgive them. And the holiday season is the time to start bringing that up and maybe healing some of these relationships. I once knew a woman who had such an issue with her ex-husband that she was angry. She was angry all the time. And when you talked to her, she would speak about her ex-husband and say all kinds of negative things. And she was just full of anxiety. She was full of hatred. She just couldn't stand the individual. And what we tried to present to her is that if she would forgive him, then her life will change. I want to read something from Joyce Myers, and it says, "If someone has hurt me and I am bitter about it, that person is actually still hurting me. Bitterness is a pain in itself. It is a negative attitude that steals joy and it steals peace. However, if I'm willing to press past the pain and make a decision to forgive, I will be free." Forgiving is not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. You can forgive somebody one morning and you can wake up the next morning and be angry again. And you can forgive them in another day and it lasts a couple days, but then you're angry with them again. I get it. I know it's not easy. Some of the things that have been done against people are quite incredible and they're hard to forgive, but you will find peace. You will find freedom from anxiety if you forgive them. So think about that a little bit this morning. Number 2, anxiety within your environment. Anxiety that you get from your environment. And that comes from Genesis 12, verse 10. And it says, "Now there was a famine in the land, and Abraham, went down to Egypt to live there for a while because the famine was severe." And so what happened with Abraham is he didn't sit and pace back and forth in his tent, wondering where the food is going to come from. How is it that he's going to feed his servants? How is he going to stay alive? What he did is he did something about it. He moved to another place where there was food. So sometimes in our lives, we need to find that job, and that maybe that job is someplace down south or someplace up north, but maybe you need to move in order to get the job that you need in order to feed your family and decrease that amount of anxiety. Now, all of you here in the Source Church, you may leave. That's just part of it. You can't go anywhere. You have to always stay here. I can't see all of you, and some got masks on, so I can't see if you're smiling or not. But we want to keep you here. But think about that a little bit. Sometimes you need to move and go to a place where you can decrease your anxiety because the work is available there. There's something else that I learned from spending 7 years here in Florida. It's the most interesting thing that I have ever seen before. I had the opportunity to be involved in Hurricane Irma. And so what happens, and I was really excited about it because I've never been in a hurricane before. So this was a whole lot of fun to me for a while. And what ends up happening is they reported on the news that a hurricane is coming. nobody blinks their eyes. Nobody thinks about it. I mean, it's not even a consideration in your mind. And I'm looking at it and say, hurricane, hurricane, but nobody else cares. And then it comes closer and closer and closer, and the people are saying, well, nah, it's going to go north along the coast. It's not going to hit us. Or it's going to go over top of the mountains in Cuba, and it's going to go down to a Category 1, and a Category 1 is just like spring rain around here. This is what goes through people's minds. And so it comes closer and closer, and I'm looking at it, and on the map, it is 250 miles wide. That's what this hurricane was, coming straight for Florida. And none of you blink an eye. Finally, when the news says something about it's going to hit land at a certain time, the world changes around here. And everybody's at the grocery store, and everybody is buying water. I noticed that you buy enough water to last you for 3 years when you're supposed to buy it, I think, for 1 or 2 weeks. All the food is taken out of the stores, and you're bringing it all to your house, and you're going to be all set for about 3 years from all the amount of stuff that you purchase. But there's still some of you, and some of you are saying, nah, it's just, we haven't had a hurricane for so long, and hurricanes aren't really that big, and so I'm not going to pay attention. And finally, they say it's going to hit Florida. And now what do? You go out and you want to buy food. But you know what? It's gone. You're going to go out and you're going to buy water. But it's gone. Now you're going to want to put your hurricane shutters up. Oh, I tried that. Standing on top of a ladder on a second floor of a building, holding this steel shutter with the screws in your mouth and a screwdriver in your hand, trying to hold it up to screw it in, thinking you're going to fall any minute. I tell you, by the end of the day, I did it for 1 day helping Chris, and he was more helping me than I was helping Chris. But I was flat on my back in the grass because I was exhausted. It was work like you wouldn't believe. But what happens is they contact Chris, Pastor Chris, and says, can you help me put up my hurricane shutters? Well, it would have been nice if you had done that a week or 2 weeks ago and not like a day before the hurricane's going to hit. But that's what you do. It was so fascinating watching that whole procedure take place. And yes, the hurricane did move around us, and it didn't hit us with its full ferocity. But we need to be prepared. How much anxiety happens in your heart when all of a sudden you realize, I need to get my shutters up. I need to buy food. I need to buy water. Somebody help me. And your anxiety rises and rises and rises. And pretty soon, you're just calling up the church saying, please help me. And you know, the church will help you as much as you can, as much as we can to do that. But prepare for what happens in your life. There's another thing that some of you have heard me talk about before, but I struggled with coming up here. Sometimes when you move to another location, accept their culture. Accept the way they do things. Don't fight against it. And I'm preaching to myself right now. Don't fight against what takes place in a culture that you're not even closely knowledgeable about. Because when I was up in Michigan, and I lived up in Michigan all my life except for the 7 years down here, the way we greeted people was we shook hands. That was cool. That's all we did is we shook hands. And I came down here, and all these women were kissing me on the cheek. And I said, Pastor Chris, Vivi, what is this all about? What are they doing? And they said, that's just the normal way that the culture is down here. Well, please let me know that before I come here. I'm in church, and I'm greeting people in church, and they're them to pull out a driver's license so you can get the date of birth so you can find out whether or not you're going to kiss them on the cheek. You are so accustomed to this that you don't think twice about it. But when I came down here, oh my goodness, I just didn't know. I took a vacation from Florida and I went up north. And I was up north. And I forgot for one moment where I was. And a lady came by me and I kissed her on the cheek. This is up north. It's never done. They don't know anything about it. And I kissed some guy's wife on the cheek. I was just horrified. I all of a sudden realized where I was and was literally horrified. It was several months later when I talked to them about it, and they just laughed. She just thought, well, maybe that's the new way that I say goodbye and I greet people. But that's the other thing, is when Cindy and I came and when we would leave a meeting, we would say, so long, everybody, and we'd walk out. And then they would go up to Chris and Vivi and say, well, did we offend them in some way? Well, I realized that everything lasted about 20 minutes longer because everybody's got to go through everyone in the group with the hugs and the kiss on the cheek and the whole bit. But when Cindy and I, it was easy. Bye. It was 1 second. It wasn't 20 minutes. I didn't realize what the culture was like. And so I fought against it, and I should never have fought against it. Should never have fought against it. It's something I should have just simply accepted because you know what? It is a wonderful part of the culture down here. Don't ever lose it. Don't let COVID take it away. May it always be part of your culture because I think it is one of the most precious things. But then they said, well, you got to kiss Vivi on the cheek. The pastor's wife? Kiss her on the cheek? No, I can't do that to the pastor's wife. I might feel like maybe with somebody else, but pastor's wife, no. I can't do that. There must be a law against it. You just don't kiss the pastor's wife. Plus, for me, I'd have to bend down so far I'd hurt my back. Accept your environment. Realize what your environment is. Learn what is part of the culture and accept it and enjoy it. And I'm still working on that. I've had people giving me a bunch of hugs now just because they know that I need to be retrained because I've been up north too far. And so I'm still working on that yet. The next one is anxiety within yourself. That's point 3. Anxiety within yourself, and it comes from Philippians 4:4-6, and it says, rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. There's a person that is a friend of mine who lives down here, and he's a very special person. He loves his wife. And he loves his kids, and he loves his grandkids, and he loves his dogs, and he loves his friends. And if there was anything that you needed from him, he would drop everything in a moment to help you out. And he's just such a wonderful individual. But lately, he'd just been notified that he may have cancer. When you are told that you have cancer or may have cancer, what goes through your minds? What you're doing is not thinking about the moment. You're thinking about, well, maybe I'll need radiation treatment. Maybe I'll lose all my hair. Maybe I'll be sick. I might not make it until Christmas. These are the things that go through your mind when you deal with an issue like that. And so, what gives you the right to be able to plan your future? Do you know what your future is? You don't know what your future is. Don't live in a future that is made up in your own mind. Get rid of those thoughts and live in the moment. So my advice for him would be to continue to do what he does so well, and that is get rid of now all the distractions in life. Just get rid of all the distractions that you can get rid of in life. And love your wife, love your kids, love your grandkids, love your friends. Take that bicycle ride out on the beach. Do whatever it is that you need to do, but do it in the moment. Don't look into the future. Do not make up stories as to about what that future might be, but continue to love the people that you love and continue the life that you're living. And then if surgery does take place, this person has a wonderful family, because what will happen when this surgery takes place? His wife will love him. His kids will love him. His grandkids will love him. His dogs will lick him on the face. His friends will love him. And he will get all kinds of love and all kinds of support. And then he'll be healed. But one thing that we must always remember, God is at our side. Through all this trauma, God is there. Sometimes you don't feel it. Sometimes you don't think about it. But remember what's in this Bible. And remember that God is going to be at your side through the whole circumstance that takes place. And sometimes there are people that have been blessed by going through that kind of experience. Sometimes their faith has been strengthened because they could feel God with them through that whole process. And you know what? Those are the people that need to be able to meet with those who are just starting the process of what to do if they happen to get cancer. But do not be anxious about the future. What worth is it? What value is it? How does that help you? Absolutely nothing. Believe in the moment, and live in that moment. Right, Jack? Number 4 is anxiety within your mind. This comes from Philippians 4, 8 through 9. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, listen to this. You have to pay attention to this passage. This is one of the most important passages that exist in the Bible. So important about keeping our anxiety levels down. Finally, brother and sister, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. During COVID, I knew a couple people that what they did during the day is they turned their TV on and they listened to the news, and they listened to every news report, and every hour on the hour they listened to how COVID is getting worse and how things are really bad. And what did it do to their mind? It just made it a black cloud. They could hardly function because all that fear and all that anxiety just crumbled them up into a ball. Stop listening to the news. You may know what's going on in the world, but don't live on the news, because you will get this black cloud over your head. I used to work in the prisons down here as a chaplain when I was down here. And on the way home, I would listen to NPR. And I listened to NPR over and over and over again. And I finally realized that when I came home to Cindy, I was agitated. And I came to the realization it was because I was listening to that day after day. Negativity coming into my life over and over and over and over again. And I needed to shut it off and listen to music instead to be able to calm my anxiety. But there's another thing that creates anxiety, and that's when you're on Facebook. And you go through it, and you're on Facebook, and you're looking at it, and say, oh, Look at my friend. Look at the beautiful house that they have. Look at the wonderful car they have. Oh, their kids, they're all dressed and their hair combed, and they must be, my kids are never that well dressed, and they never have their hair combed, and you start comparing yourself to other people. And when you compare yourself to other people on Facebook, you can hardly ever stand up to that because they only put the best things on Facebook. You don't realize that the whole family is falling apart for different reasons. That's not on Facebook. They don't present that. All they do is the good stuff. And so I heard Pastor Chris make a comment in one of his messages that said, reduce your Facebook viewing. Well, just stop it. Just stop looking at it. If you are struggling in your life with high amounts of anxiety and that Facebook operation that you go through is creating you a lot of anxiety, stop doing it. Don't do it anymore. And then the last thing is put people with joy in front of you. Find people that really show joy. There's a lady here who's a volunteer. Her name's Sally. I have never seen her without a smile on her face. See, your face is a mirror to your soul. What I see on your face tells me what your soul is all like. And she is pure joy from the top of her head down to the tips of her toes. Those are the people you need to spend time with. And your anxiety levels will go lower and lower and lower. Number 5, anxiety in your circumstances. This comes from Philippians 4, 10 through 13. I rejoiced greatly in the Lord that at least you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. I'm not saying this because I'm in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all things through him who gives me strength. And so you take a look at your circumstance and you say, I wish I was over here. I wish I could be doing this. I wish I could have this job. I want you to see the circumstance which you're in right now and find joy in that circumstance. And God has you there for a reason. God has you there for a reason. Look for what opportunities God is giving you. If you happen to work for a grocery store, maybe there will be people there that will ask you about your faith, and you'll be able to express that faith. If you work as a salesperson, you might have those opportunities to express your faith. Just look at what the opportunities are that God is presenting you in the place where you are right now and enjoy those opportunities. Maybe you want to be a church of 500 people. But don't worry about that. Worry about enjoying a smaller congregation and the ability to know all of you as friends. I have 25 people in mind. Not hard, but enjoy it. Live in the moment. Enjoy what it is that you have now. In conclusion, it is time. It is now time to decrease your anxiety in one other area. And that is the anxiety that you might feel about where you're going to go someday when you die. COVID has taught you something, and COVID has taught you that lives don't go on forever, that people will die at younger ages that you never expected. I have a friend who met with her friends, which was a husband and wife. And the husband tried to get his wife to the hospital because she had COVID. And he got her there, and they did work on her. And later on, his kids found him face down in his bedroom, and he had COVID. And so they brought him to the hospital. So husband and wife both were in the hospital. Rather young, never any anticipation that they would die. And they died within 2 hours of each other. I have this picture in my mind, and this picture in my mind is that the two of them are walking hand in hand together toward the gates of heaven. That's the kind of picture you need to put in your mind. If you believe in the birth of Jesus, if you believe in everything he did in his life, if you believe that he died on the cross, if you believe that he was risen again after 3 days, if you believe that he's in heaven waiting for you right now, you need to make that decision now, not after lunch, not tonight. You don't make that decision next week. But you make that decision now. So many people say, I believe, but they literally don't know anything in the Bible. How do you believe in something you know nothing about? You need to read, you need to pray, and then you need to truly and honestly accept Jesus as your Savior, because you do not know when the end is coming. So we're going to do something a little different this morning. And our musicians have literally no idea what I'm going to do next. They never did. But what I want to do is I want to do what some people call an altar call. I'm not calling it an altar call, but I want to have our prayer warriors come forward. And our musicians are going to play quietly in the next few minutes. And if you really are struggling with the anxiety of your Christian beliefs, if you really don't know what is in this Bible, if you truly have not made that decision, but you go to church on Sunday because it's the right thing to do, or you check it off your spirituality list, if you truly, honestly do not know where you're going to go when you die, come up here. And they will play quietly for a little while. Meet with our prayer warriors. Let's pray about that. And then I will come out and do the blessing after that. So the next few minutes, please come forward if you desire.
This is the air I breathe. This is the air I breathe. Your holy presence living in me. This is my daily bread. This is my daily bread. Your very word spoken to me, and I'm desperate for you. And I'm lost without you.
We'll sing that again. Sing, I'm desperate, Lord.
And I'm desperate for you. And I'm lost without you.
I'm lost without you. I'm lost without you.
desperate for you. And I'm lost without you.
I would like to give you the blessing this morning. This blessing doesn't come from me. This blessing comes from God. I'm just the vessel that gives you the blessing. Will we rise and this morning hold out your hands and accept the blessing that God is giving you? May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face towards each and every one of you, and even those who are online that are watching this morning. May you feel that incredible and that wonderful peace that decreases the anxiety of your life. In Jesus' name, amen.